Good day, grade 12. Welcome back to our YouTube channel. Today you'll be doing Maths Lit with me, Miss Mathayan. Today we're going to continue with taxation. In videos 1 and 2, I started teaching you about income tax. So, before watching this video, please make sure you go back and watch the first two. So, let's carry on where we left off in the last video. Step 5, tax brackets. In this section, we are going to be determining values seen in the tax table. What do I mean by this? Let's have a look. So, in the tax table given on the screen, you will see there are values in the rates of tax. So, by this, I mean the ones I am underlining currently in orange. Sometimes in an examination paper, they will ask you, for example, show how the value 77,362 from the rate for tax bracket 3 was calculated. In other words, they want you to prove with a calculation how this number has been calculated. So, how do we do it? You will be taking the tax bracket above. And using this information to help you with the calculation. So, you will take the tax rate that I showed you how to write out in the previous question, and you will use it to provide the calculation to give you the 77,362. So, 42,678 plus 26% open brackets. So, in the previous video I showed you how we would substitute in the annual taxable income into these brackets. But in this case there is no annual taxable income. So what do we put into the brackets? Well, we use the corresponding tax bracket, which would be this value. So you would say 370,500 minus the last value, and that should give you the 77,362. Take a moment, put this calculation into your calculator, and double check if you get this answer. If you don't, there's a few things you can double check. Double check that you have used a percentage symbol. Or you can say 26 over 100. Make sure you have used brackets. Otherwise, with some calculators, BODMAS might be a problem. If you got that correct in your calculators, well done. Calculator skills are exceptionally important. Let's go on to another practice question. Show how the value 179,147 from the rate for tax bracket 3 was calculated. So, with that question, there is an error, unfortunately. It is actually tax bracket 5. So we'll cross that out and we'll say tax bracket 5. So let's find the tax bracket. Tax bracket 5 is over here. So we have identified the tax bracket. Remember, identification is an important mathematical literacy skill. So we have found the bracket. We have found the value in the question. Remember, we are trying to prove how 179,147 was calculated. So, we look for the value, we have found the value, and we jump above. So, once again, we've found where 179,147 falls into, and we don't want to stay where we are, so we jump up. and we use the information in the tax bracket above to help us answer the question. So, if we write it out in full, the previous tax rate will be 121,475 plus 36% open brackets. So, what do we put in the middle? If you said a subtraction, you are correct. We put a subtraction symbol. So, what goes first into the bracket? Well, as you would have seen in the example above, we would be taking that value that I just circled in green. Remember, we are using information from the tax bracket above to help us with our answer. So, our calculation is almost complete at this point. We just have one space at the end. So, what do we put there? Well, we take the answer, we take the tax rate, and we apply this to our answer. So all the information for this type of question will be found in the table. You just need to make sure that firstly you have confident and good calculator skills. Sometimes we overlook the ability to input a percentage, to insert a bracket, and these are important skills you must have to be successful in this topic, but also in mathematical literacy as a whole. You also need to make sure wherever you identify the value for this type of question, we jump up and we use the information above it to help us answer the question. So if you put in this whole calculation into your calculators correctly, sometimes when you'll be stressed in an exam situation, you might forget a digit, you might forget to put the percentage symbol. So always double check what you are putting on your calculator and what you are writing on your page is matching and is correct. So if you put this calculation correctly into your calculators, you should end up with the 179,147 that was given in the original question. Let's carry on. So now we are going to combine the steps. What do I mean by this? We are going to use our knowledge from lesson 1 and lesson 2 to now integrate them into a longer question. Remember, tax questions can be up to 12 marks. So there are lots of different components that we need to learn to put together. So let's do this example together. Tamia is a 34-year-old pharmacist who earns 34,200 Rand per month. She contributes 7.5% monthly to a pension fund. Calculate her annual tax payable before rebates. As I tell my learners, before you even look at the tax table, you need to analyze the scenario given to you. So let's analyze the information that has been given to us. Firstly, we've been given her age. We've been given her monthly salary, and we've also been told that she does in fact responsibly contribute 7.5% monthly to a pension fund. Now, the question wants us to calculate her annual tax payable before rebates. So, in your mind, you should be saying, okay, annual tax payable. How many steps is that going to be? We will be doing steps 1, 2, 5 in this video. So, let's do the calculation together step by step. So, we are going to combine the steps now. Like I said, there are multi-step questions that can be asked, especially at matric level. You should be ready for those types of questions. So, Tamia's annual tax payable. Firstly, we need to know her annual gross income. So if we go back, she earns 34,200 Rand per month. So 34,200 times 12. Why do we times by 12? That is to take a monthly value and make it annual. So in your calculators, please input that. If you inputted the calculation correctly, you should see that the annual gross salary for Tamia is 410,400 Rand. That's a great start. We now need to know her annual non-taxable deductions. By that I mean how much she contributes to pension. Remember, not every scenario will have pension, so it's important to read carefully. So, pension time. We're going to take her annual gross salary and we multiply by 7.5%. So, have I just chosen that 7.5% randomly? No, I have not. By now you should know 7.5% is the pension contribution percentage each month. To make our lives easier, because we only want to work with annual values, we take her annual salary and times that by 7.5%. So in a year, Tamia's pension contribution is 30,780 Rand. Great stuff. So that's steps 1 and 2 done. We're now on to step 3. Do you recall what step 3 is? If you said annual taxable income, you are correct. This is the stage where we will take Tamia's gross salary and we will subtract her annual pension from this value. Remember, annual taxable income, we are always going to be using subtraction in our calculators. Bomsey's scenario. And we've analysed what is important in the question. This is something you need to do in your exams. Take a pencil, circle the important information, underline the important information. Make sure it stands out and you do not miss anything important. So, like I mentioned, one of the differences in this question compared to Tamia's scenario was the fact that Ntombomzi's salary was given as a yearly format, whereas we were given Tamia's monthly. So when we begin our calculation, remember I asked you, do you think we would need to times by 12? The answer is no. We would not need to times by 12. So we can just write down her annual gross income as is. That is all that you need to do for step 1. No timesing by 12 is required. That is why you must read extra carefully. It was also stated she contributes to a pension fund. And if 7.5% is popping up in your mind, that is great. Because we take her annual gross income from step 1 and multiply it by 7.5%. Go ahead, put it in your calculators. You should get 41,310 Rand. Once again, I will emphasize the importance of writing the Rand unit. We are mathematicians, specifically in mathematical literacy, so we need to be doing things the right way. So step 1 and 2 are done. What is the next step? If you've said annual taxable income, in other words, our ATI, that is great. You've caught on to what I've been saying. For our annual taxable income, you will take her annual gross salary given to us in the question and subtract it. Always subtract it with annual pension if the question has provided it. So, you should end up with an annual taxable income for Ntombomzi of 509,490 Rand. Do we put our pens down? Do we stop and lay back now? Not at all. We still have things to do. We still actually need to determine her annual tax payable. And now that we have her ATI, we can head over to the tax table. So we need to look at her annual tax income or annual taxable income and see which of the brackets it falls into. So, in other words, where this answer falls into the tax table. So, if we quickly look through brackets 1, no. We can see that number's way too big. Bracket 2, again, it is still too big. Bracket 3, the maximum for bracket 3 is 512,800 Rand. So our ATI will fit into bracket 3. Meaning, for our calculation, we are going to use the corresponding rate next door. So, we will write out our rate in full. We open those brackets. We have our minus. So, our annual taxable income always is written first. And as I mentioned previously, the value at the end of the rate goes into the last portion of the brackets. You'll see some educators might teach their learners to break down this calculation. You'll also see in some memos they break down this calculation step by step. However, I feel it is more efficient to put the whole calculation into your calculator and provide the answer. It saves time and you will still get all the marks. When you are rushing for those 3-hour papers to get done, you need to learn these quick tips. So, let's check the answer together. 77,362 plus 31%, or as I've said before, you can say 31 over 100. Open brackets. Then we input our ATI and we subtract the value given in the tax table. So, if we've used our calculators correctly, you should end up with Ntombomzi's annual tax payable before any rebates as 120,448.90. I can't emphasize enough the importance of writing those decimals at the end. So, let's quickly recap. With Ntombomzi's scenario, we did not times by 12 because we read carefully and we saw that the salary given was already annual. We then could go straight to step 2 and times by the pension fund contribution, which is 7.5%. Once again, if you're more comfortable with 7.5 over 100, that is more than fine. We then got 41,310 Rand. What does that value mean? Well, that is how much Ntombomzi contributes each year to her pension fund. We use those 2 steps to determine her annual taxable income. This step is vital before you can use the tax brackets. You cannot use the tax brackets or the tax table without determining the annual taxable income first. We then substituted our ATI into our brackets and we got our final answer. So please go over these steps, familiarize yourself, and do as many past paper questions as possible. So, what is next for us with Maths Lit? Well, we still have steps 6 to 9. We have tax rebates. What are tax rebates? They are great things for employees. They are discounts on the tax you have to pay. They are relief for how much you have to pay. We have tax credits. These apply specifically to those who hold medical aid schemes. These are also discounts and positive things for taxpayers. If you have medical credits, you pay less tax. And lastly, we will take our answer and convert it to a monthly taxable amount. Remember, when we go from monthly to annual, we times by 12. But when we are working in the opposite way, well, what's the opposite of multiply? Divide. To get monthly tax, you divide by 12. Thank you for joining me today, Miss Matheny. Remember, if you want to master your future, you have to first master Maths Lit.